Hello chaps and welcome to my build update number 1 for the FX 148 Hurricane Mark 1B. So as usual, first off I wash the parts in warm soapy water, rinse them off, let them air dry, then move on to cutting parts off the sprues and assembling them. They're the horizontal stabilizers. This is all the cockpit assembly, all the parts cleaned up, glued together, along with those wing spars. That's the first assembly done. And there's some walls that go into the wheel bay areas on the lower wing assembly. And then I glued the firewall into the port side fuselage off. I then cut out the machine gun doors on the upper wing parts. Then removed the underside fuselage parts, ailerons, stabilizers, rudder and elevators and propeller parts, cleaned them up, got them ready. Did the same with all the other peripheral parts, assembled small assemblies, got everything onto cocktail sticks, making them ready for primer. The last thing to do was to mask the windshield and the sliding canopy. After that, everything was cleaned down with isopropyl alcohol. There are all the small parts cleaned. And when that was dry, I then airbrushed black Stynol Res primer onto all the inside surfaces, cockpit area, and the machine gun bays and wheel bay areas. And then onto all the peripheral parts, all those smaller parts. After that, using a Vallejo acrylic metal colour aluminum, I airbrushed that into all the areas that have to be aluminum and on all the inside surfaces of the peripheral parts. Then moved on to detailing the cockpit assembly and then gluing that into the wing base part. I then added the seat belts using wine foil, added the machine guns in place and all the magazine boxes. So that completed that first major assembly there. And that was ready to move on to gloss clear coating. After that, I painted the insides of the wheel bay areas, machine gun bay areas there. Painted green onto the cockpit walls and onto the firewall, and then pulled out some of the details with black paint. I then moved on to detail painting the instrument panel, and then I put gloss clear coat into the dials, let that set, and it looks like glass. After that, I glued the upper wing parts into place onto the lower assembly. So now I've got major parts there ready to glue together and get the major assembly going. That's just looking at the inside of the wheel bays. So gloss clear coat was used to seal in all that paintwork, and when it was dry I then moved on to creating an oil wash with black oil paint, odorless mineral spirits. Applied that over all those previously painted and clear coated areas, let it dry for about an hour, then rubbed the excess off, leaving on an amount that just makes it look dirty. And then that was all again sealed in with clear coats. And there's all the cockpit interior all sealed with a matte clear coat. But all the metal parts were given a satin clear coat to keep a sheen to them. After that, I assembled the two fuselage halves, taped and clamped them to a set, and then glued on the lower wing base assembly to the fuselage halves. That's looking on the underside. Next, I glued in that front fuselage part on the underside. There's a step there that's going to have to be attended to. And then I assembled the rear section, followed by the port side aileron in the down position and the starboard side aileron in the upward position. The elevators were then glued into place and I had them angled down, and you'll see that in the next image there. From that view you can see they're angled down. I then assembled the radiator housing, air filter, air intake, oil cooler intake, etc. And that was followed by the arrestor hook on the underside of the rear area. I then drilled out the gun ports and assembled the landing lights, landing lights. I then temporarily located the machine gun bay doors with putter to mask the machine gun bays, and then masked the cockpit area with tape. I then masked the wheel bays using putter. I then put damp tissue in the front end there, and that's to stop any paint and clear coats getting down in there that might affect the interior, the cockpit area. I then painted the starboard side and port side lights green and red, and that was followed by filling the gaps where the stabilizers joined the fuselage, and there was a couple of sink marks there just inside of those on the upper fuselage. I then clear coated those previously painted light areas, let the clear coat set, then glued in the lenses. The first one was the port side red, that's the starboard side green with the lens in place. I then painted the underside light silver, clear coated it and stuck in the lens. And then after that, all the lenses were given a liquid masking film to protect them from the primer and paint section, painting. That's the underside light with the liquid masking film. I then masked the air intake using damp tissue. Then everything was cleaned down with isopropyl alcohol. Let that dry, and then applied the primer. I used a grey Stynylrez primer. So that's it, guys, for this update number 1. Next update we'll look at painting, applying decals, weathering and final assembly. So until then, guys, thanks for watching this update. Happy modelling. Talio, chocks away.